Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, March 3rd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 183 days. The game against Michigan in 267 days, but coming much, much sooner than both the Indiana game and the Michigan game is the start of spring football at Ohio State. That starts next Tuesday, March 7th. It's finally here. I'm excited. Not even being sarcastic. I am excited. And I know that Tony Gerdeman is excited too, because he is here to talk to me about, I think, what are the three most interesting storylines going into the spring. He and I have been doing a whole series, kind of going position by position, sort of evaluating where things are on the Buckeye Weekly podcast. And it feels like on most of those shows, we say, boy, this is going to be an interesting position to watch this spring. Today, we're going to kind of get down to where the rubber meets the road, the three most interesting positional battles to kind of watch this spring, Tony. And I've been on the internet before. I know what the people want to hear. Tony, we got to talk about the quarterbacks. Everyone loves a good quarterback battle. It has been a long time since it has felt like there is a real, true, legitimate quarterback battle at Ohio State. This spring feels like this is pretty wide open.
It's interesting because I think those of us covering it right here, at ground zero, feel like it is a wide open competition now. I think we would all say Kyle McCord may be the betting favorite based on his experience and the fact that he's played 12 games compared to Devin Brown maybe playing 2, I think. But, listening to a national show on Thursday, they're talking about guys who needed to step up, and they're talking about Kyle McCord as the presumed starter at Ohio State. And I wonder if that's how it's seen outside of Ohio State, if it's just like, well, yeah, sure, it's going to be a new starter, but it's going to be Kyle McCord. Like, if we would look at the Georgia race and just presume that, Carson Beck or whomever, as opposed to there's going to be a battle. So it's interesting, the closer you get, the focus changes, obviously, but I don't know how you can't be interested in this, because not only is it the battle for the quarterback at Ohio State, which is always a big thing. You look at the numbers that the quarterback at Ohio State puts up. There's a ton of production there. There's NFL future. There's national championship hopes. There's Heisman stuff. All of this, all Big Ten, silver football. If you are the starting quarterback at Ohio State, the world is open to you, and that's a lot of pressure to put on the guys. And that's probably also why they try to just keep the blinders on it. We're just trying to play your best practice 1, your best practice 2. Don't worry about all the other stuff. Get rid of all that other noise. And I think maybe there were times last season, where C.J. Stroud didn't get rid of all the noise. But then by the end of the season, the only focus was like Georgia, and you saw how he played. So this is the start of, not even the start of it. This is just another leg of that focus, that battle, because everything's going to be measured. Everything they do, every answer, every response to a negative situation, every way they bounce back, all of it's going to be measured. And this would be the time to be a fly on the wall in the Ohio State football building.
One thing that I think would be interesting is how much of the assumption nationally that Kyle McCord is the favorite to be the starter is based on the fact that he's been at Ohio State a year longer, and how much is based on the fact that he was Marvin Harrison's high school teammate. Because, I am not casting aspersions here, because if you ask me to talk about USC football intelligently off the top of my head right now, I could probably give you a good 30 to 45 seconds and then start wandering into stuff the USC fans might go, well, actually. So I don't want to, not mean to cast aspersions here, but Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. were high school teammates is one of those like fun facts that sort of sticks in everyone's brain. And then it's like, if you are asked to talk extemporaneously about the Ohio State quarterback battle for 45 seconds, that's one of those things that's going to come out. And I don't know how meaningful that is. Something that might be more meaningful is Kyle McCord is sort of perceived as the better thrower. Devin Brown is perceived as maybe the better runner. McCord can run. Brown can obviously throw. He was a five-star prospect, so it's not like this is the, one extreme versus the other, but it's sort of shades of gray with both of them. It's going to be super interesting to me to see how do those two factors get weighed here, because the quarterback running has not really necessarily been something that Ohio State has really leaned on the last couple of years. But you wonder if they have a guy who might be able to do that a little bit more, is that something that they really value and that they view as something that, that I don't know that anyone could possibly love it as much as Ohio State fans on Twitter, the idea of the Ohio State quarterback running, but I don't know how much of that is just a factor of the Ohio State quarterback hasn't run a whole heck of a lot the last few years.
Yeah, and you have the reaction to Devin Brown's running ability has him as the favorite for some, just because of that running ability, based on CJ Stroud's running. It has nothing to do with Kyle McCord. Nobody has seen enough of him to say, well, he won't run. They're just basing it off of, well, CJ Stroud didn't, so we need the guy who will. Never mind the fact that might be Kyle McCord. You might get as much running as you wanted to see out of CJ Stroud. You didn't want to see a lot. There are just times, 1 or 2 times a game where you wish he would have taken off. If Kyle McCord does that, then he is he the quarterback that you've been looking for? And if they start running some read option types of looks there with no actual option, then maybe you get some more consternation. But even those can become RPOs. So I think if you don't need the best runner, you just need a willing runner. Those 1 or 2 times that it just really irked people, and then you're the less irked you are, the happier you're going to be with the quarterbacks. And I think both of those guys are willing to do that. And they've also both, Kyle McCord's been the backup for 2 years. He's seen the criticism that CJ Stroud has gotten. And it's probably one of the things he's like, you know what, when it's my job, I might choose to run a couple of times.
Yeah, and it'll be also interesting to see how they evaluate that, because they're all wearing black jerseys this spring. No one is supposed to touch the quarterback. So, we've talked about that in terms of running backs and evaluating running backs during the spring game when they're sort of playing thud and not tackle. It's kind of hard to evaluate the running if no one can tackle the quarterback and you can't really tell how elusive the quarterback is. So that's another fun little side angle to this whole story that we'll be watching all throughout the spring. So there's number one. Number two, man, oh man, the quarterback situation feels like obviously that's a very, the quarterback is a pretty important position on the football field. Exclusive, must credit the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast. There you go. So there's one thing you just learned this morning. Number two, offensive line, pretty important too. And when you have 2 5-star quarterbacks, it feels like, well, one of them is going to end up being just fine. And you have seen 5-star quarterbacks under Ryan Day develop at a pretty consistent and pretty outstanding rate. So it feels like that's, an interesting storyline, but not necessarily a potentially concerning storyline. Maybe a little more concerning is the offensive line, where you've got 2 guards coming back, and then you've got a transfer center ? And you've got a couple guys who you're looking to replace at the tackle position, and you got one guy who you're probably feeling pretty good about there, and the other one's kind of a question mark. And that feels like maybe of all the position groups, the offensive line and how that shakes out this spring might go the furthest in determining how this fall looks like for Ohio State.
Yeah, and if you look around just the blue bloods nationally, every year, like if their offense is struggling and they have a good quarterback, it's because of that offensive line and the guy not having any time. And Ohio State always finds a way for their offensive line to come together, usually through recruiting and development, but it's never a huge concern when it comes to actually throwing the ball, moving the ball, putting points on the board. They've managed to do that, to a great degree in Ryan Day's time and also in Urban Meyer's time. So these things always come together. But I am looking forward to that first practice, that first line, the time they line up, assuming we get to see the whole thing. And there is actually some offensive alignment, and there'll be some drills where they're just drilling the 5 offensive linemen. Where's Josh Fryer? Where is Zen Michalski? Where is Victor Cutler? I assume we'll see Cutler at center, but there's Josh Fryer at left tackle. Where, Zen Michalski was the backup left tackle last year. Where is he? Is he now the number 1 right tackle? Is like this battle of these 2 premium positions, which were fantastic last season with Paris Johnson and Dawand Jones. CJ Stroud could just wait back and find guys and not really have to concern himself, not have to look at the defensive line as much. And so that's obviously going to change a little bit for whoever starts this year. But yeah, I just want to see that first alignment. What is it tells us what Justin Fry is thinking. And then in 2 weeks when they come back for probably not even in 2 weeks, probably week 3, when they've come back from spring break and then had a week of practice. We'll see where they are lining up again, and that will tell us how players have been playing, how they've been producing, and then where they go from there. We'll be able to start seeing some trends there. But I am interested to see just where things start out, because that gives us at least a glimpse into what Justin Frye is thinking.
Yeah, I always think of that first practice of the spring not as this big momentous event, but more as just, here is a really useful data point, and it doesn't tell us anything necessarily right now, or not very much right now, but when we can contrast it to what we're looking at 3 weeks from now, we're going to learn a lot. So that is going to be on Tuesday a very useful day of information, and then in 3 weeks we'll tell you what it all means. So can't wait for that. The offensive line itself is one of the reasons it's so interesting to me, is because there are so many different configurations you could have there, where if Victor Cutler is the best center, great. Then you've got your guards and your center figured out, and then it's just which side is Josh Fryer playing on and who else is going to be a tackle. But, does one of the guards, if Victor Cutler isn't, does Matt Jones get kicked inside, and then does Enoch Vamahi get to, does Matt Jones get kicked inside to center, and does Enoch Vamahi get slid in at guard? Or is Enoch Vamahi maybe one of the tackles? Or does Zen Mahalski win one of the tackle jobs? You were tracking the potential depth chart for Ohio State, and it's just sort of, it's like one of those things where you figure out, hey, there's 8 items on the menu at this restaurant, and that means there's 16,000 different combinations. That's kind of what the offensive line is like this spring. And, there are a couple spots where you feel pretty confident. They really seem pretty sure that Donovan Jackson's going to be the left guard. But if they kick him out to left tackle, boy, hey, there's more combinations. So there's a lot of ways this could shake out, and we will start finding out about that on Tuesday. Something else we're going to find out about starting on Tuesday is the safety position. That is a spot where Ohio State, they have Lathan Ransom back. They've got Sonny Styles back. They've got Josh Proctor back. But you're looking to replace Tanner McAllister. You're looking to replace Ronnie Hickman. Then there are guys who could fit. This is another one where the guys could fit in a couple different ways. And you've seen Lathan Ransom play the Bandit. You've seen Lathan Ransom play the Adjuster. Who's going to play the nickel spot this year? There's a lot to look for at that safety spot. And anytime you're talking about a position that Sonny Styles might be involved in, it's always kind of intriguing. Like, okay, there's a lot of really interesting possibilities here.
Yeah, there are. And that's going to be one of the first things I'm looking for. Where is Sonny? Where is he in that pecking order? Where is Jihad Carter, the transfer from Syracuse? Is he the number 1 nickel, or is that Cameron Martinez, who was the number 2 nickel last year? How do they use these guys together? I was writing about the linebackers earlier in the week, and I included Sonny Styles just as a mention for the way he was used against Georgia as essentially an outside linebacker against 12 personnel, against 1 back and 2 tight ends. And I'm wondering, do we even see anything like that this spring, or is it just the base 4-2-5? Or, because if you remember last spring, we did see like 3 linebackers quite a bit and only 2 safeties. So that's another thing. It's like, how much are they delving into the actual defense? How much are they delving into just let's get as many guys as much work as possible? But I'm going to be watching for Sonny Styles. Is Josh Proctor the number 1 strong safety just because? Or, because remember, he's been the starting safety for the last 2 years. Like, he's opening day starter and got hurt in 2021. Lost a job in 2022, but has played well enough to earn a job. And so, like, if you've got, like, was he a 6th-year guy now, 5th-year guy coming into that job as a potential strong safety, Lathan Ransom as that potential adjuster, the free safety, because I think if he's not there, and I think we've said this before, if say is Kai Stokes the number 1 guy there, because that's another guy that we will figure out what are we going to see from him. Where is he in the pecking order? Because I think we said it before, if Lathan Ransom stays a strong safety, and Josh Proctor stays a strong safety, and Sonny Styles stays a strong safety, and Kai Stokes is your number 1 free safety, that tells you a whole heck of a lot about how they feel about Kai Stokes. That would be one of the more momentous things that you would learn on spring in just day 1. Like, that shouldn't happen. And there it is.
Yeah, that shouldn't happen, and that's either extremely good news or extremely bad news, probably extremely good news in that particular case, but we'll all find out together as we work our way through spring ball starting on Tuesday. We'll have coverage at practice on Tuesday and Thursday next week. Then the Buckeyes go on spring break for a week, and then they're back leading up to the spring game on April 15th, 16th. I should have looked this up before we started the show. It's on the Saturday. You'll figure it out. You're very smart. And it'll be in Ohio Stadium, and it'll be at noon. You can buy tickets. They're $7 this year, unless you want the fancy pantsy seats, which go up to $15 and $30. But yes, it should be a fun day at Ohio Stadium on April 15th, 16th, whatever it is. But we got a lot of fun days at the Woody Hayes before we get to Ohio Stadium in the spring game. So that will all start on Tuesday. There's a whole lot of other fun stuff happening at BuckeyeHuddle.com right now as well. Kevin Noon and Mark Givler are in Indianapolis covering the NFL Combine. They were also just down south scouting a whole bunch of different, very intriguing prospects for Ohio State, as in Cincinnati and then down in Georgia. Lots of great information, lots of great coverage there, and lots of great conversation on the Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So, boy, this sounds like a whole lot of great reasons that you should become a member. Hey, guess what? You can do that today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Also, make sure you check out, obviously, we are on YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. I'm assuming most of you guys, if you're watching this and listening to this, are subscribed there already. You should also be subscribed to YouTube.com/@CFB Playbook. That is our college football playbook channel. And Mark and Kevin are churning out lots of great content about all the guys who did not play at Ohio State who were at the NFL Combine this week. Lots of really interesting interviews and all that kind of stuff. All at youtube.com/@CFB Playbook. Make sure you subscribe to that one today because there's going to be a lot of great content there as well. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.